Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and welcome to my December and 2022 wrap up. I still need to wrap up the few books that I read in December. I didn't read a ton of them, so it's not going to take very long. And then I thought it would be fun to also reflect on the entire reading year of 2022, talk through some stats, and if there are any interesting findings for me to know going into my 2023 reading year. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. Again, we're going to start with my December wrap up. In December, I only read 6 books, which for me is not very many. I definitely am more of a 10 to 20 book per month type reader, but December was very busy. We did a lot of traveling. One of my kids had a birthday. Obviously the holidays are in there. So I did slow down my reading, and I do think that was the right decision, but it is interesting that December was my lowest reading month of the entire year last year. So as I mentioned, I read 6 books in total. I read 5 for videos and 1 was just for fun, and it was actually for a book club, which I will mention when I talk about that book. As far as genres go, I read 2 mystery thrillers, 2 contemporaries, 1 science fiction, and 1 cozy mystery. For formats, I read 1 book physically only, I read 1 book via audio only, and then the other 4 I read as a combination between physical and audio. For ratings, I had 0 1-stars and 0 2-stars, which is a good thing. I had 4 3-star books, no 4-stars, and 2 5-star books, which is definitely an interesting distribution. I am very happy with those 2 5-star books that I had. And to very quickly talk about the specific books that I read in December, the first 3 that I read were for an Aardvark Book Club reading vlog, where I tried out books from the Aardvark Book Club subscription box service. I tried 3 of their picks with pretty good results. The first book that I read is The Other Side of Night by Adam Hamdy. This is a mystery thriller with kind of a sci-fi twist to it. I don't think you need to know too much more than that going into it, because I didn't, and I was blown away. I was so shocked by this book, loved the twist and the entire ending and how my understanding of the whole story came together. So I rated this book a resounding 5 stars. The second book I read for that video is Singer Distance by Ethan Chatanier. This is a sci-fi book about a group of college students who are trying to solve a really complex math problem sent to Earth from Mars. So it's pretty science heavy. I really liked the concept of the book and like the first half, but unfortunately as the story went on, my enjoyment waned, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. And then the third book that I read for that video is Closer to Okay by Amy Watson. This is a contemporary book about a girl who is living at a recovery house because she has a history of self-harm and attempted to take her own life, and she is basically recovering from that physically, mentally, and everything all together. While I thought that this was a beautiful story and I know that it will touch certain people really deeply, I unfortunately didn't connect on that super deep level, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. The second video that I worked on in December is my book of the month reading vlog. I only read 2 of the 3 books in December. The third one I read as my first book in January. But the 2 books that I read in December are All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. This is a mystery thriller about a mother whose son was taken out of his crib at night, and so she is trying to find him. She is not getting any sleep in this time that's passing without her finding her son. And at the time we jump into the story, it's 1 year later. She's still trying to solve that mystery. This book unfortunately was just okay. I was really anticipating this story after enjoying this author's first book called A Flicker in the Dark, but I had a lot of nitpicky little issues with this story, which I will just refer you to watch the vlog if you're interested in those details. I also didn't find this to be anything super new or original because I have read other child abduction type thrillers before. So unfortunately, not a new favorite thriller, but still glad that I read it. And then the second book that I read for that video is Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is an adult contemporary romance about a couple who was married and had children together, and then they unfortunately suffered a really serious loss together and ended up getting a divorce as a result of it. And this is their romance coming back together. This was so emotional and I loved every second of it. Again, I go much more in detail in that reading vlog as to why I loved this story so much, but it was nothing like any other romance that I've ever read before. I do love emotional romances, so I expected to love it going into it, and I'm so glad that it lived up to my internal hype and I ended up giving it 5 stars. And then the last book, the 6th book that I read in December, was Apple Cider Slaying by Julie Ann Lindsay. This is a cozy mystery about this woman whose grandmother, I think, owns an apple orchard, and so she helps run that business. She's also trying to get a side hustle second business off the ground selling apple cider. She's going about that business venture trying to get a business loan when somebody turns up dead at their orchard. So obviously all eyes turn to her and her grandmother. They become kind of ostracized, and it really hinders her ability to get this hustle off the ground. So it's all about her trying to solve that mystery and clear her and her grandmother's names. This was fine. I'm finding that I'm not a cozy mystery person. I think they're just a little bit too cutesy for me. I like my mystery thrillers to be a little bit faster paced, a little bit higher stakes. I did read this for the Cozy Hollow Book Club, which is a book club that some of my friends here on BookTube and Instagram run, where they read cozy mysteries every other month. I so badly want to participate in that book club, and I have participated in the last 2 live shows that they've held. I just feel really bad not enjoying the book that all of them love. So I'm not sure what my participation will look like in the future. I think I will probably wait until they announce one that has a synopsis that I'm super drawn to before I dive in. But that has been an interesting realization for me in the last year, that cozy mysteries, while I love them in concept and I love that other people love them, I don't think that's the perfect genre for me. So with that, let's talk about my 2022 reading year as a whole. I ended up reading 175 books in 2022, which is the most books that I've ever read in a year. I feel so good about it. That also adds up to about 58,684 pages. That is according to Goodreads. And to also go through some more of Goodreads' little stats that they put together at the end of the year, the shortest book that I read in 2022 was Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Absolutely loved it, gave it 5 stars. And the longest book that I read is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Also loved it, also gave it 5 stars. So that's kind of fun that I loved both the shortest and the longest books that I read. And the average book length that I read last year was 335 pages, which I'm really happy with. That does seem to ring true with the average book length that I pick up, and it tells me that I really do balance some shorter books with longer books. I'm not afraid to read longer books, and I would consider 335 pages to be a good solid average length. The most shelved or most popular book that I read last year is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. It's one of my favorites. I did reread it in preparation for the sequel that came out last year. And the least shelved book is coincidentally Closer to Okay, which of course I read in December. My average rating for the whole year is 3.3, which to be honest feels low. That feels like maybe I was a little harsh with the ratings, but at the same time, when I read 175 books, it can't be expected that they're all gonna be favorites. So even an average being over 3, I guess, is generally good. And the overall highest rated book that I read is again The Nightingale. And then some stats that I put together for myself. Let's talk genre breakdown. By far, my most read genres last year were mystery, thriller, and horror. I combine those all together because I find it really hard to separate exactly what makes a book a mystery versus a thriller versus a horror. I think you can make arguments for any direction. So by combining them, I think it's clear that it's just the spooky books. I read 79 of those, which was about 45% of my reading. My second highest category was contemporary and or romance. Again, I combine those together because usually most contemporary books that I read have some sort of romantic element, and it's really hard to figure out where to draw that line of when is it a romance and when is it just a contemporary with a romance subplot. So I read 44 of those, which made up 25% of my reading. My next highest genre was science fiction, which I'm happy to see. I read 22 of those, which make up 13% of my reading. Then my last, what I would call major genre, is historical fiction. I read 15 of those, which makes up 9%. Then the leftover genres make up a much more minority percentage of my reading. That's nonfiction, which I read 7 of, which is 4%. Fantasy, I read 6 of those, which makes up 3% of my reading. And then I read 1 classic and 1 graphic novel, which is less than 1% for each of those genres. Overall, I'm really happy with that breakdown. I think it completely makes sense with my tastes. Thrillers, contemporaries, science fiction, and historical fiction, I always say, are my most read genres. And maybe in the future I could even those out to make those percentages even closer to each other. But in general, I'm happy with those being the highest. Then let's talk about where I read books from. And by that, I mean, did I own most of the books that I read or not? It turns out that I did, and 97 of the books that I've read are books that I own physically, or did own and have since unhauled it, but did own at one point. That's about 55%. Honestly, I might have expected that to be a little bit higher because I do make such an effort to read from my physical TBR. But then again, I do listen to a ton of audiobooks and frequent my library. So I am happy to see that 65 of the books I read audio only. That could be through Hoopla or Libby, which are free through my library, or through Scribd, which is a paid service, or Audible and Libro FM. I use both of those services as well, which are pay per credit type of apps. That makes up 37% of my reading, and then the rest is books that I borrowed physically from my library. I had 13 of those, which is 7%. Ratings, I already gave kind of a clue to this with my average rating being a 3.3 for the year, but in all of 2022, I only had 3 one-star books, which is about 2% of my reading, 25 two-star books, which is about 14%, 77 three-star books, which is the majority out of all of these ratings, 44%. I had 52 four-star books, or 30%, and 18 five-star books, which is 10%. And in general, I'm happy with that. I don't know if there's much I can do to change that going forward, but it does make sense to me that 3 stars is my most common rating, and I'm happy to see that 4 and 5 stars makes up a greater majority than 1 and 2 star ratings. A reminder that I did post my favorite and least favorite books of the year videos to my channel in December, so if you somehow missed those, I will link them so you can go back and watch them. And the last thing I kind of wanted to wrap up was my content on my channel. I really feel like I found my groove last year in terms of making content that I enjoy, as well as making content that is searchable and helps people to find my channel, and videos that I think I can kind of claim as staples to my channel. Like one, for example, I would say my Book of the Month reading vlogs is a series that I really love doing. I get good feedback on. I posted 7 of those in 2022 and plan to keep them going into 2023. I posted 9 readathon vlogs, which I am super happy with because I love participating in readathons, whether I'm co-hosting them or not. I think readathons are one of the best ways to connect with other people within this community and also prompt my reading in a fun way. Some other video series that I started or continued doing on my channel this year is my complete author backlist series, where I read all of the books that an author has ever published. My book series binge series, where I read an entire series of books at one time. My celebrity book club series, which I am very excited to continue doing into next year as well. BookTube Friends recommend videos, which I love doing because, again, I love connecting with my friends here on the platform and reading books that they have loved. A type of video that I'm calling genre specific, where basically I just dive into one certain type of genre of books that I would like to explore more. So last year I did sci-fi and romance. I really feel like I got some winners out of both of those videos, so I would love to continue those. And then I also had some other just random themed videos that I got an idea for, I decided to do, and I for sure plan to keep doing creative themed reading vlogs into the future. All in all, I posted 72 videos in 2022 and did 13 live streams and had an absolute blast. So my goals for 2023 I did already do a video on, but the overarching theme is that I just want to continue doing what I'm doing. I'm so happy to be here on this platform talking to all of you about books. Please let me know if there's anything specific you would like to see from me in the future, and I will certainly consider it. Otherwise, again, just get ready to keep watching the same sort of stuff that I'm already putting out. Also, please let me know how your 2022 reading went. Did you meet your reading goals? Did you track your reading? Is there anything that you noticed was a trend for you last year that you either want to change or continue going into next year? Let me know. Let's chat about it. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.